There are going to be those moments where you're both completely falling apart together, and that's okay.
Because I do think that parents sometimes need to not always be present. They need to take care of themselves in a moment, or they need to recharge.
If you need to get somewhere else, maybe putting a timer, but where you're completely just present and you get lost in time with them.
Yesterday I got to the point of almost feeling completely numb because I was like, this feels too much.
That there's this domino effect that the more you work on yourself, the more it'll impact your children.
I could just feel her taking from my nervous system in that moment. And it was I almost honestly didn't do it for her.
Part of mindful parenting is accepting your children for who they are and moving away from your fears and expectations.
Alexandra, thanks so much for joining me today here.
It's great to be here with you today.
We're going to talk all about mindfulness and how to bring it into our parenting roles, right? Tell us a little bit about, I know this is a specialty of yours, tell us a little bit about how you got into mindfulness yourself and then how you brought it into your work.
Yeah, so it was kind of serendipitous. I was living in Vermont doing my postdoc training. And at the time, I was already very interested in learning more about mindfulness. And I had a supervisor who was a Buddhist. And so I expressed my interest in mindfulness. And she connected me with a Buddhist temple in Vermont where I started to go for meditation. And that was the beginning of a beautiful relationship and a beautiful daily practice of mine.
How do you feel that shifted things for you? And was it real meditation, Buddhist type meditation, not our little apps that we have?
Yes, it's a beautiful temple in the heart
real
and mountains and woods of Vermont. And there's the people that run it are Buddhist monks.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I went, I had never meditated for longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And the monk there was a wonderful woman who said, just sit with your breath for the next half an hour. And I was incredibly intimidated, but I did it. And that was the beginning of my practice. And I noticed the next day when I was sitting with my patients during my internship that I was a lot more present. My mind wandered less than usual. And that was enough to motivate me to start going weekly there.
Just from one time. You
Just
already
for
saw a
one
shift.
time. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And then how did you end up bringing it into your work? Because you work with your clients on this also.
Yes. As I got more into the world of meditation, I started to read more about mindfulness. And there's a very prominent author and mindfulness teacher named Jon Kabat-Zinn. Mm-hmm. And I started to read more of his work. He wrote a beautiful book, which I recommend for everyone, parents, not parents, called Everyday Blessings. Mm-hmm. And he really talks about how to bring more of this mindfulness or awareness into our daily lives, whether it's for ourselves or as parents, how to teach it to our children from a very young age.
How would you describe what mindfulness is?
That's a great question. Mindfulness translates into awareness. And it's about dropping in to the present moment and creating moments during the day to be fully present. In this day and age, it means putting our phones away and finding moments for ourselves just to be in the moment. It could be deciding to have a mindful meal where you don't have your phone, you're sitting, you're going to have lunch by yourself that day and really tapping into the food that you're eating, the smell, the taste. Yeah. That's a small way to practice just full presence.
Yeah. Really staying in our bodies, right? That's become really hard, it seems lately. And I think it kind of gets exacerbated, our need to kind of leave our bodies when we have kids, right? It just sort of feels like the way we cope a lot of times with the noise around us, the actual noise, but also the triggers that we deal with, the crying, the meltdowns, the needing us so much that I think that often part of our coping mechanisms is to kind of disconnect or detach from what's happening. Do you feel like most people are walking around kind of mindless or on autopilot?
I think those are all great points. And yes, I think also, again, technology, our phones, our access to our phones allow us to disconnect at any moment. So yes, children tend to like disrupt our nervous systems and dysregulate them. So it's very easy. I'm just going to go on my phone and look at my email or anything. And it's a very easy way to disconnect. That's also highly stimulating and addicting. So before you know it, like you're just not there.
Yeah. And it's like dopamine hits too, right? Like I know you said right before we started this, you said you don't have social media. Was that like a conscious decision you made?
In my 20s, when I first started to get involved in Facebook, so that was about 20 years ago, I would notice that when I would get onto Facebook, I didn't like how I felt.
All the way back then.
All the way back then.
So intuitively, you just knew what we would all be kind of leading to.
Yeah. And so it was a conscious decision.
Yeah, it's definitely, obviously we get a lot of good information a lot of times, and I think it keeps us connected, but it definitely feels like a cop-out a lot of times, not just with our kids. Like this is also like in our grown-up relationships, like our phones are problematic, right? We're not really able to listen to each other. We're not really fully able to practice presence. Like you don't feel like someone really cares or is paying attention to you if you're talking to them and they're just on their phone or they're busy doing something else. So I think it's just disrupting all kinds of relationships in our lives too.
Yes, I was noticing yesterday at the playground, there was a mother pushing her daughter on the swing and she was just on her phone the whole time. Yeah. And you're there, but you're not there, you know, the presence of absence.
Yeah. It's true. On the other hand, without being judgmental, I also feel like, what could you recommend instead? Because I do think that parents sometimes need to not always be present. They need to like take care of themselves in a moment, or they need to recharge. And sometimes it does feel like too much to always be on.
100%. And I agree with you. I think it's a slippery slope in terms of being judgmental. And I wouldn't want anyone to be hard on themselves either in this day and age where we're competing with technology. I think setting the intention to have one moment of the day, if we're talking about children, where we're completely present with our children. You put your phone away or you leave it at home and you say, this is my moment. This is my moment to be present. There's where you're not thinking of when it begins or when it ends. If you if you need to get somewhere else, maybe putting a timer, but where you're completely just present and you get lost in time with them. Yeah. If you could do that once a day, whether it's for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, I think that's a great practice. And then, yes, there are moments where you also need a second to yourself.
Do your thing. Yeah. Right. Well, do you think it's just being present and like being there, or is there more to it? Because obviously there's like, let's talk about triggers, for example. Okay, so I can be really present with my child. And this happened to me actually yesterday. She was in the car. There's a thing with the car for me that I'm like trying to think about it a lot because it feels very triggering to me when she has meltdowns in the car. And I think it's this sort of helplessness that I feel like there is nothing I can do. Like I cannot, she's like screaming for me to pick her up. I cannot pick her up. Like I just have to keep driving. I have to, go wherever we're going. And it's a feeling of helplessness. But I find that yesterday I got to the point of almost feeling completely numb because I was like, this feels too much and I feel too helpless. Like I don't know what to do in that moment. So could you describe like what mindfulness would look like there?
So it might look exactly like what you experienced.
Just the observation of sort of what I was going through.
The observation, yes.
And letting go.
And letting go. This is the moment.
Or accepting.
Yes, accepting that this is exactly what's happening right now. And not every moment of parenting is going to be picture perfect. There are going to be those moments where you're both completely falling apart together. And that's okay. And, a big part of mindfulness also is encouraging our children. My daughter gets super upset when I tell her to do this, but I still do it, is take a deep breath. Like when I see that she's having a meltdown, I encourage her because I think teaching them at a young age to take those deep breaths will be helpful, even if they're resistant to it in the moment. I think right now I'm like that annoying person that's telling her to take a deep breath when she wants to tell me to just like
F off.
Exactly. That's exactly.
I have this memory of Liv, my oldest one, when she was probably like 5, where it was something like she didn't want to have dinner. She said, I remember now, she was only hungry for M&Ms. Only. Okay. So very specific. So there were no M&Ms available. So she did not choose to have dinner because she was only me hungry for M&Ms. Let's fast forward to bedtime. There was a lot of tantruming and a lot of like, but I'm starving now. So when we were going all through it and it led to this whole big thing, I remember like first trying to kind of, obviously talking her out of it is not going to work when she's so emotional. Telling her to take deep breaths wasn't working either. But then I did something where I just started really audibly like breathing. So I just like put my hands over my heart and I was just taking these really deep breaths. And she just started watching me. And she was, I think it was curiosity and intrigue, but I could just feel her taking from my nervous system in that moment. And it was like, I almost honestly didn't do it for her. I think I was doing it for myself because it was very overwhelming after so long to be sitting there with your child, but it ended up feeding her as well. So I think sometimes even thinking about like not only doing things to teach our kids, but we actually need it for ourselves, for our own sanity. And it ends up still being a model for them too.
Yes. And that's a huge aspect of mindfulness and mindful parenting, that there's like this domino effect, that the more you work on yourself, the more it'll impact your children. And we learn, the research shows, like, especially with infants, how their nervous systems are regulated by our nervous systems. But I think even into young childhood, they're definitely impacted by how we're feeling. And I think that's a beautiful example of that.
And they're watching us. They're watching how we handle stress.
Always.
You know, I want to take a quick break from this episode to share more about my services offered at Hatch and Bloom. Whether you're seeking personalized one-on-one guidance or insightful group learning, we have the right support for you. Our private sessions provide you with the tools and strategies needed to support your child's growth. So take the next step in nurturing your child's potential and book a session with me today. Please visit hatchandbloom.co. That's .co. Or you can email me at evelyn@hatchandbloom.co. Now back to the episode. Another example is I was driving the other day with my oldest one, and I was a little bit road ragey, right? And I get frustrated with very slow drivers. And I don't remember what I said, where I was like very impatient, clearly, right? And my 9-year-old looked at me and she was like, I'm like, oh, why can't people like drive, right? And she looks at me and she's like, what if she's just enjoying the view? And I was like, what if she is just enjoying the view? What a lesson from my daughter to be like, you know what? Like, you were so presumptuous a lot of times of like people just not doing things that feel like they're right, or we're judgy, or we're impatient or whatever. But this was such a beautiful teaching moment of like a pause that came from my own child.
And so it seems like in that moment, what the moment was teaching you, was asking of you, was to cultivate a sense of patience.
Yes. And it's interesting because I remember teaching her to have patience for about 10 years. She's not even 10, but it feels like 10. And now here she was reminding me to find my own patience. That was a beautiful little teaching moment. We learn so much from our kids.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I think children are just naturally plugged in to the present moment, you know?
They are. That's why, you know, when you see little ones go from point A to point B and it takes exponentially long, right? It is because they're so mindful. Like they found the rock on the floor and now they turned in, they're seeing the leaves blow in the air and look at that flower and this is purple. And they're just so plugged in, like you're saying, to every single thing along the way that it almost sometimes feels like they're doing it right. And like we're asking them to kind of rush into our pace of life.
Yeah. And that's a great opportunity to learn from them. Yesterday, I'm usually like, we go to the playground after school, but after school, 4:00 playground, then we have to get home, take a bath, dinner. And so I could get very much lost in like the schedule. And on our way there, I mean, my daughter was stopping, as you're saying, to pick a flower and then wanted to get off her bicycle and fix her doll. And I was about to rush her and I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to get lost in the moment with you. And I think it's beautiful when we allow our children to take us on those journeys. Yeah. It makes the moment, also the experience, so much more rich, you know?
But if we're not at that place where we can see it that way, then it just a lot of times feels like they're just being defiant or like not following the rules, or they're so slow or they're so lazy. So as we were saying, like it really starts with our own work to be able to even have that sort of pause and perception. So how do you start that?
I think that really bleeds into why meditation has become so big, or yoga classes. We see they're so popular right now.
Why does it work so much?
It works because as you start to develop your own, let's say, meditation practice, even if it's 5 minutes a day, and you practice presence and you practice, okay, my mind is going to this thought, I'm coming back to the present moment, my mind, then it kind of bleeds into your life that all of a sudden you're on a walk with your daughter and you catch yourself, I'm rushing to the park, but there's no rush. This is part of that experience. So it teaches you it makes you more aware of what's happening in the moment. Does that make sense? Yeah. I don't know if it's very lofty.
No, it does. It brings you back. It kind of brings you back, the way that you're bringing your mind back.
The more you practice bringing your mind back as you're sitting in a meditation practice, the more it'll help you bring yourself back in real time.
Okay. Got it. And the other part that I kind of want to touch on is sort of this idea of reacting versus responding. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So that's another very important aspect of mindful parenting. And reacting is our automatic response to our children. My daughter the other day came home from school. Doesn't always work out this way, had a major meltdown after I had taken her for ice cream and really ended my workday early, and I thought, I'm devoting my afternoon to you, and suddenly you're having a meltdown. That's what I was feeling inside. And so sometimes I'm not having the best day and I'll react and I will say that. I devoted my whole afternoon to you. Yeah. Like, what the hell? Yeah. What's going on here? That day was a good day. I took a deep breath and I said, I see you're having a really hard moment. Yeah. I'm here for you. I sat down on the floor. And I'm here for you when you're ready for a hug. Initially, she wasn't, but eventually she came over and I hugged her. And she was just probably really tired after school. And that was responding. It doesn't always work out so beautifully. But the more we're just at least catch ourselves. Because parenthood, the beauty of parenthood is that we have a bunch of opportunities to do it better the next time.
That's what I always say. They're like, I did it wrong. I'm like, you're going to get to do it a million times more. Don't you worry. Yeah. And that you can always repair. Like that's such a beautiful concept. I was interviewing the other day, Whitney Goodman. I don't know if you know her, but she works with adult children on like their relationship with their parents. And it's very interesting, her specialty. And she even works a lot with adult children who have become estranged from their parents. So she was really kind of surveying like, what is it that kind of causes a lot of times these adult children, when they're children to become estranged, or to really like feel like these are really broken relationships. And one of the things, they're emotionally immature parents, but one of the things was that they were never able to apologize or take accountability. And so that really, and this is over 2,000 adult children responded to this. So this really shows the power of repairing with our kids, right? Like there's this really old age idea that we're going to lose authority if we stoop down to the level of our children and let them know that we've done something we shouldn't have and that we're going to lose credibility. So we need to throw that idea out the window. That's not what A is going to happen, or B, that's not what's important, right? Can you speak more to that, the power of that?
Yes, I think it's so powerful actually for our children to see us own up to our mistakes and to see us say, I made a mistake, and to apologize and to repair. I think that's a huge part of parenting. And I think our children learn the most through observation. So seeing us be able to own up to our mistakes also gives them permission to do that in other relationships. And
and able to just see us in our like full human experience, right? A lot of times they put us on these pedestals where they think like my parents are not going to understand. They have it all figured out. They've got it all together. I can't relate. They can't relate. But I think that when we show them the humanness in us, like they're able to feel much safer around us, much more open, much more vulnerable.
And that is like another key aspect of mindful parenting is acceptance. And it begins with acceptance of ourselves. So I think that part of it is often doing our own therapy and making friends with the parts of ourselves that we judge or criticize or aren't okay with, because that also bleeds into how we approach our children. And it's important. Part of mindful parenting is accepting your children for who they are and moving away from your fears and expectations for them, but also noticing them. What is my fear?
Yeah.
What are my expectations?
And we all have expectations.
100%.
Like even from the womb, we already have expectations of who our children will be. So when they don't come out and kind of fit that mold that we've created, we either clash or we learn to see them, right? I remember, I'll share this one last story, was my daughter was practicing. Oh no, she was not practicing. I wanted her to practice ballet. And she was only like 3, I think. And I took her to like the Russian ballet, like the really intense start one. And because the moment I found out I had a girl in my belly, I already pictured the tutu, the bun, all of this. So I did get her the tutu, put her hair, her hair didn't even go in a bun because she didn't even have enough hair, but I gelled the crap out of it to make it just my vision come true, right? Because that's what mattered. And as I'm getting her all dressed, she was like, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. And I'm like, you don't know that you don't, which is true. She didn't know yet. But the whole way there, she's like, I don't like ballet. I'm like, you've never tried ballet. I think you're really going to love it. When we got there, she was like, I don't want to go in there. I'm like, again, we're going to meet this dream of mine. So she went in, and she was it was like the only child that they had to come and find the parent, me, and be like, you need to take your child home because she really is very disruptive. Does not want to be here. Does not like it. Like, you got to go. And the whole ride home, she was like so angry at me. And she was like, I never want to do ballet again. I told you I didn't want to do it. I don't like it. I don't like it. And when I got home, it just kind of, and you should see these pictures. They're really horrible. They're like the saddest puppy pictures ever of her. But it just was this realization that really dawned on me of like, this was me pushing my agenda of my dream, of my expectation onto her. And she told me at 3 years old in 10 different ways, this is not me. I don't like anything about this. And I just couldn't actually see what she was saying. And let me tell you that she's 9 and she has never, ever again wanted to do anything remotely close to ballet. So she knew what she wanted and didn't want.
And it's great that you caught yourself though. That's like the important piece, because I think that builds on their own
100%
self-esteem.
And sometimes we ignore it, right? And we continue to put them in things that like it's not for them. And we're almost curating like their life for them. How many things were you put into that you were like, this
ballet was one of them too. Yeah. And I think now there's a growing awareness of kind of knowing your children, teaching them to accept themselves.
Yeah. What's the balance though between like exposure and like challenging a child versus like listening to their needs? Like sometimes don't you feel like it's tricky?
It is. It's definitely tricky. And I think you're asking a great question, because we also don't want to not challenge them, right? And to let them stay like
in their one little comfort zone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just giving them even that one opportunity. And if they, if that's something that you pushed her to do and she didn't want to do it, okay.
Yeah. I guess there's no perfect answer to that.
It's tricky, and it depends on the child, I
their
think.
age, like a lot of things.
Yeah. I have a daughter right now. She's in elementary school and she doesn't want to go to camp this summer. And I'm still trying to navigate
like what the right
I don't want
to
force her, but I know she shies away from new experiences and then ends up loving them. So
That's
it's going to be this balance that I'm going to have to find.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, can you give us 3 or 4 tips if somebody's like, okay, I don't know how to just jump straight into meditation. 3 or 4 tips on starting a journey to lead a more mindful parenting life.
Yes, of course. I would say the first one is finding a moment a day. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 15 minutes to practice complete presence. Whether, like we said, it's a meal or going on a walk or a meditation app. There's insight timer.
For you, not necessarily with your child.
Yes, with yourself. That would be number one. Number two, finding a moment a day with your child where you're completely present. Again, it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. The more you do it, the more you're actually going to love it, especially with your children, I think.
Because you probably start to really find the joy in your parenthood and not so much look at it as just, I have to just tell my child to do all these things. Like you're actually joining them in their world.
Yeah, you're getting lost in the moment with them and you don't have an email that you just check that's taking you to work and what you have to do. It's like permission to
just be.
Just be.
And it's bringing probably out your own inner child as well. Yeah.
Definitely. And I'd say the third is what we were just talking about, practicing acceptance with yourself. I think if you can, the more you're able to accept yourself and catch yourself when you're criticizing yourself or judging yourself, the more you're going to be able to do that with your children as well.
Something that I just started venturing in, I've always recommended it to all of my clients, but I never was able to do it myself, is journaling. And this is very, very new for me. So I'm still getting, and I'm removing expectations and pressure of like, first I was like failing because I had to do it every day and it wasn't a thing I could do every day. Now I'm more of like, I feel like there's a lot, so I think I need to journal. So I'm being much more flexible with it. But I have found it to be incredibly powerful for me. So even just writing, processing, like everything you're saying, sometimes getting it down is a little bit different than just keeping it all in your head.
And that could be your moment of presence.
Yes. For me, that's what it's been.
And
so it's been great.
Wonderful. Yeah.
This is so important. I'm so glad that you're here to talk about this today.
It's wonderful to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Hey, everyone. It's Evelyn. Thank you so much for tuning in. Your support truly means the world to me. If you're interested in hosting a parenting workshop, I'd love to connect. Whether it's a private session for parents, a school event, or a corporate workshop, I'm here to help bring valuable insights and strategies to your community. Let's chat and make it happen. Please visit hatchandbloom.co. That's .co. Or you can email me at evelyn@hatchandbloom.co.